Hello, this is Attorney Brian Pendergraft, and I'm a landlord attorney, licensed practice law here in Maryland. And I thought I would do a quick video on on Montgomery County, Maryland's COVID-19 Renter Relief Act. So this bill was enacted or passed on April 23rd, 2020. So that was today's the 25th, so that was 2 days ago. So this is a very new and fresh law. And what it does, in a nutshell, is it prohibits landlords from raising rent above 2.6%, and gives landlords, I guess, a few new legal obligations where they must send tenants certain notices, essentially. So that is what it does. And the state of emergency is the COVID-19, essentially, state of emergency. So as long as we're in this COVID-19 state of emergency, landlords are not supposed to raise rent above a certain amount. So I have the bill in front of us, and we're going to not see exactly. My goal is two things. One, to see exactly how they go about achieving, their goal, their stated goal, and two, to see what new legal obligations they give landlords. So, an expedited act. All right. So, and also, this is also a good, I guess, tutorial on how to read and interpret bills to see exactly what's going on. You can kind of see the minds of your Montgomery County Council to see exactly how this bill was modified. So, and then also it's a good lesson for me, because bills can be quite confusing, because you'll see certain things were taken out, certain things were amended, and you can kind of see how the legislators were fighting, essentially. Because you can see some people just wanted, some of your legislators wanted tenants for there to be no rent increases at all. Some of your legislators wanted, Montgomery County legislators actually wanted there to be the landlords to be able to increase rent above at least to a certain amount, and that's what they got. So that's what they got. So let's just get into this, and I'll explain what I mean as we go along. So here are the I guess the 4 points of what this act is supposed to do. It's supposed to prohibit the increase of rent above rent guidelines. All right, so essentially anything that has 2 underlines underneath it, that means it was amended or added in. So what the original bill did was that was not in there, above rent guidelines. So what they, at least who introduced this bill, wanted to prohibit the increase of rent, period, during the state of emergency. But apparently it had to pass, and in order for it to pass, there had to be a compromise. So someone said, "Nah, you know what? I'm only going to sign off on this if we prohibit the increase of rent above certain rent guidelines." And so they got that in. So and those rent during and after the state of emergency. The state of emergency they're referring to is the COVID-19 state of emergency. Part number 2, prohibit certain notices to tenants. Part number 3, require certain notices to tenants. And part number 4, generally amend county law concerning landlord-tenant relations. And now this part here, as you can see, this is where I got the what's it called? How this bill is coded, and learn how to read it to see what was amended, what was added then, and what was deleted, essentially. And now you can see that this bill is kind of it looks very different than what its original form was supposed to be. As you can see, almost everything is underlined, and there's lots of brackets that were added in. So this bill it can be, I guess, confusing or difficult even for me to read and understand. I'm supposed to be an attorney. Well, I am an attorney. Yeah, hopefully maybe I should edit that out. But yeah, all right. So let's get into it. So rent increases during state of emergency prohibited. So what this is saying is that certain rent increases during this state of emergency is prohibited. And the first thing they do is define what an emergency is. So an emergency means a catastrophic health emergency declared by the governor of the state of Maryland. Let me just translate that for you guys really quickly, because I want to make this video kind of short. That is the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency that we are currently in right now. So it's prohibiting certain rent increases. So rent increases above certain guidelines when prohibited. So a landlord must not increase the tenant's rent amount to an amount that exceeds the voluntary rent guidelines under Section 29-53. So what's Section 29-53? That is the consumer price index for the year of 2020. And right now, that amount is 2.6%. So what this is saying is, landlords, you cannot increase rent above 2.6% during this state of emergency. So above 2.6%, you cannot increase above. So you can still increase, just not above 2.6. You cannot increase Let's see, the rent increase would, one, the rent increase would take effect during an emergency, or two, notice of the rent increase does not comply with subsection C and section 29-54. All right, so what is subsection C and what is section 29-54? Let's get into it. So section 29-54, I have this here. So this is just, this is not a new law. This is just what Montgomery County's, this is just the notice that Montgomery County landlords have to, it's just a form, essentially, of notice that Montgomery County landlords must send. You're already required to do this. If you're a Montgomery County landlord, I'm assuming that you already know this. So I'm not going to cover that here in this video. I'm here to cover new stuff, not old laws. That said, I'm going to drop a link to this in the description in case you don't know. All right, so now subsection C. So the notices, so here's your new legal obligation, essentially, landlord. So your notices must comply with subsection C. So again, so during an emergency and notice of rent adjustments. So during an emergency and within, all right, so 30 is crossed out. So that means it was crossed out and it was amended to 90. So the point, we need to look at that 90 number. Don't be confused by the 30. Just pretend it's not there. So during an emergency and within 90 days after the expiration of an emergency. All right, so this is saying when you must. So the first part is saying when this notice of rent adjustment, when you must. Is saying when, and the second part is saying what exactly a landlord must do. So a landlord must notify a tenant of a rent increase if the increase would exceed the voluntary rent guidelines under section of 2.6%, essentially. All right, so moving on to point 2. A landlord. All right, so this part is again, don't be fooled by this. This part is struck out. So a landlord must inform a tenant in writing to disregard any notice of rent increase. That was struck out. So at least in that form, it was struck out. So let's see how they went about. An amendment was added. So if a landlord provided notice of a rent increase to a tenant prior to the emergency and the increase would have exceeded the voluntary rent guidelines of 2.6%, the landlord must inform the tenant in writing. So if landlords have sent tenants a prior notice, they must now send a new notice, a prior notice that would exceed the voluntary rent guidelines. So you're saying, hey, I'm raising your rent and it's, I'm raising it by 3%. Now you have to send another notice that says, yeah, you know what? Disregard that last notice that I sent you. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not raising rent by 2.6%. So landlords have a new obligation to send a new notice. So they have to send. So they have to let them know to here's what they let them know: A, to disregard that prior notice, and then B, that this notice says that the increased amount is amended to be less than or equal to the voluntary rent guidelines under. All right, so your new increase is going to be 2.6% or less. So that is the new obligation that Montgomery County landlords have. So, you know what, I probably could have explained that a whole lot better without going through this bill. Anyway, so notice of expiration of emergency. The department must post on the website information about the requirements of the section, including the date that emergency expires, and that date is 90 days after the expiration of the emergency. So, let's see. So, let's see. Council declares legislation is necessary and immediate to protection of the public interest. The act takes effect on blah, blah, blah. Sunset date. The act expires upon the 181st day following the expiration of the catastrophic health emergency declared by the governor on March 5th, 2020, or is amended or is extended by the governor. Okay. So, yeah, there you have it. So hopefully you landlords now understand your new obligations to, So again, in a nutshell, don't raise rent above 2.6% during this state of emergency. And you're going to have to send certain notices. And you're going to send, and if you've already sent notices to them, that says it's going to raise rent above, I don't know, by 5% or whatever, you have to send a new notice saying that, hey, we're not going to raise rent above a certain amount. So there you have it. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing and you were able to understand what I was trying to say. And thanks for watching.